You know, yesterday my coworker called me a 1950s house witch. Today we're serving up Howl from Howl's Moving Castle vibes instead.
Hello, my ghosts and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel. It has been quite a while because I made that post on my community tab about how my life had gotten out of control, but we were getting it back under control, and then everything got worse. But you are not here for my excuses as to why this video is so much later than when I completed this project. You are here for the project itself. And for once, all of my patterns are available in stores. Like, you can go out and buy them because they're actual vintage reproduction patterns by, like, real companies. However, I had big introductory plans about how I went through and picked all of my patterns to pair with the fabrics, and that didn't pan out because the SD card that I was working on was brand new, and instead of actually behaving like an SD card, it just decided to eat a bunch of my footage.
Hello. No, down here. Hello and welcome to a new SD card because my other one is completely borked. It was a brand new card. I was like, oh, it's your birthday. Treat yourself. Get a 128 gigabyte SD card. However, it is completely borked and went into read-only mode. So now I'm waiting for all my files to transfer onto a thumb drive so that I can continue working on this project. Sometimes you intend to make a circle skirt and then you add 7 inches to the hem, and then you end up having to make a half circle skirt because you run out of fabric.
However, if you would like to know about this, it is the same Vogue pattern that I used for my rainbow dress, and I was so pleased with the rainbow dress and how that came out that I decided that I wanted to make a new one in a more wearable palette. So I chose this black and gray fabric that was part of the Joann's Halloween collection that I promise when worn is not nearly as see-through as it appears in the clips where I have it put up to the sunlight. I don't know why it appears so transparent on film. I had wanted to put pockets in the side seams of a full circle skirt that would be cut on the bias, but instead I ended up having to do bound pockets because I didn't have enough fabric to do a full circle skirt.
So I tried to line that up really carefully on the black stripe so that it would create, you know, a perfect little doodad here. That did not work. So I'm going to color this in with a Sharpie as soon as I find a black Sharpie. This time I'm gonna be smart and use black fabric instead of the striped fabric for my pockets.
Being a seam in the full circle skirt still would have been a superior method of putting pockets in this, but I'm not entirely mad at these bound pockets now that I look at them with a little more emotional distance than I did at this time. And most people are pretty impressed by them.
So I just finished lining my bound pockets. Now, I've just whip stitched the edges of my pocket piece onto my little bound pieces here. I've just whip stitched my lining / pocket piece onto this piece here. My little actual bound thingy. Oh dear. But the reason that I had basted everything closed is because it's a lot easier to do that with your bound pocket actually like stitched closed rather than trying to mess around with everything while it's actively moving. So now I am going to turn these this way out. And I'm gonna essentially French seam these. Might be a little too close. So I'm just gonna pin these together, get them sewn, and then turn this whole thing back inside and stitch around that, and it's gonna end up with a really nicely finished pocket. Scout, is that really a valid technique? I have no idea whether it's valid, but it's certainly a technique. I have pockets now. You can't see them. They are secret pockets. When it's on, I've roughly held it up to my waist. It does have a little bit of gaping here, but overall, they are not bad. I can't wait to have a Sharpie so that I can make the other one look equally as unnoticeable. But yeah, 128 gigabyte card, completely borked, and I have already thrown away the packaging and the receipt. I'm not happy. Alright. It is now 9 p.m. I was tired, and my throat's a bit sore, so I've taken 2 naps today. I didn't bother with updating with the zipper and the center back. Because this is all cut on the bias, I am not finishing the edges because they won't fray, because again, they're cut on the bias. So I just did a regular polyester zipper at the back here. I need to sew a hook and eye up the top. And I need to get my facings sewn down, but other than that, all I have to do is insert my waist stay, which is basically just a piece of ribbon that's going to go around the entirety of the waist, and install a little hook and eye toward the end. What will happen when this is installed is that I can do up that hook and eye separately, and it'll take the pressure off of the zipper at this waist point, so it won't completely buckle under the pressure, and the garment will last a lot longer, especially this back zipper, because these tend to take a lot of strain, and if you've ever installed a zipper and had too much bulk at the waist, you will know that they are fragile, fragile creatures. Actually, I won't be using this pink one because I found a new spool of black grosgrain, so I'll be using that instead. Would you guys like to see some pretty innards? I probably don't sound fantastic. I have caught a cold. My throat is pretty sore. I'm not having a great time. All I have been capable of today is to just sew in facings and sew on hooks. So that's what I've done. This has a hook and eye up at the top of the zipper, rather than me just cutting the top bits of the zipper off and making the zipper stay up. Then we have pretty inside. Everything is whip stitched down to the outside. And then this is my waist tape. That too is just whip stitched down at each seam. And then this is my ribbon. Has a hook on this side and an eye on this side. Go like that. And it takes the major strain off of the waist seam here. So that's done. I am going to attempt to talk myself. Oh, I also turned the bottom hem in twice, just by eyeball, around 1/3 of an inch, and stitched it down. There's so much happening with this dress, I wasn't too concerned about the hem being visible. I probably could have done that by hand, but I didn't want to. Someone please crash the housing market so that we may become home improvement lesbians. This is not related to sewing, but it is related to why I have not been sewing. If you are not on my Discord or anything, you probably don't know, but me and my fiance have been trying to buy a house. Right now, in the middle of 2021, and it is... every single house that goes up on the market is a bloodbath. Like, it is... I just got back from trying to go look at a house, and between when we booked the appointment to go look and now, it's only been like 3 days. Someone has made a cash offer on it, and I am so heartbroken. I am so upset because it was a Victorian in need of some work, and we would very much like to be the white people in every haunting movie who, you know, find an old historical home that needs work but it's got great bones. So, I didn't even get to go in. There wasn't any pictures of the inside on the listing, and it did say that it needed quite a bit of rehab and restoration, so someone else was gonna have to do that work. We got a pile of patterns here, all marked up and ready to be sewn. I cut out my entire pattern out of my fashion fabric, and then I did most of the pieces except for the front overlay out of lining, which is just some plain black cotton. I was only going to line the bodice, and then I realized that this is a wiggle dress and will probably be a little bit more forgiving if it's fully lined, although I think with the bottom I am just going to go with a flat lining rather than the whole thing being lined, because I don't want to do that much work. The ruffle is going to be on the left side. I gotta get these together because I don't know my right from my left properly. This continues to be a very strange pattern. So the pattern has, this is my big skirt piece. I've taken a lot of Mucinex DM and my voice is a little bit better. Hope my neighbors are using their air conditioning and can't hear me, because right now not only do I have a cold and my period, but it's also like 90 outside, so I'm in an oven as well. But this pattern has you stitch together part of your front ruffle flap overlay, and then turn it inside out and press. So that's what I'm doing now. And then all the tucks get formed. I have to find a way to transfer all of these to the outside, because I wasn't expecting me to do it from the outside. So that's fun. Oh, I don't know if you can see my lines in the... No, I don't know if you can see my lines in the fray. But now I'm meant to pull these together into tucks. And stitch them. This looks like it'll be a very messy affair.
I debated a while on whether I should make this wiggle dress out of this card fabric or out of the gray fabric that I used for the third dress, but in the end I decided to go with the card fabric because I thought it would look better with the ruffle, and considering how kind of lumpy that the third dress ended up looking, I made the right choice.
Oh man. Every turn in this pattern has been a left. Alright, I have got my tucks sewn, and these get folded to the inside. It does specify on the inside. Now I get to press them down and baste across the folds. So here is my front panel. We have this overlay and then just the rest of the skirt. This is what it says to do, so I'm gonna go and sew this together. Alright, it is pocket time. I'm going to install my pocket on this side so that hopefully it gets hidden amongst these folds. And hopefully we don't get too much gappage. Fingers crossed. This looks absolutely atrocious over my flannel shirt, but we have a pocket. I'd say that's serviceable enough. Definitely should go up to the end of this little ruffle here, but I think we are achieving it. Now time to make up the bodice.
Having now worked with this Butterick pattern, along with that hobbity vest pattern that everybody uses to make vests that are history bounding or fantasy bounding or any sort of dark academia type of vibe, Butterick is not very good at instructions. The instructions are leaving out certain important details in the construction of this, and I kind of just had to make them up as I went along. However, what I will say is that they are very true to size. Simplicity, Vogue, and McCall's tend to run their pattern envelopes toward very, very comically large sizes as compared to the actual dimensions of the finished piece, which means that a size 6 is theoretically for someone with a 26-inch waist, and then you open it up and look at the finished garment and it's like it's for a 23-inch waist, which leads to you being very confused as a sewist and having to make a lot of really weird adjustments when in reality you just made too large of a size.
It's my birthday! My dresses are not finished because I was busy being a snot monster. I'm still kind of a snot monster, but I'm less of a snot monster than I was. I have a top half and I have a bottom half. Time to put them together. For my top half, I have stitched the shoulder seams up and then put the lining and the outer fabric together and stitched the neckline, then turned it inside and did all my pressing so that it's nice and sharp. Focus. So my little notches are nice and sharp. And this side, then I did up the side seams. The armhole seams are still open. I will do those a little bit later. And those I'm just gonna turn in and hem, whip stitch them down by hand, I think. Although I may hem them by machine. I haven't decided yet. And I have turned in my corners here. Or my not my corners, I've done up the side here. My zipper is longer than the zipper that's intended to go in this dress, so I have left this open for now. The rest of it open, and now I get to put the top and the bottom half together so that I can install the zipper. Remember how I said I was a snot monster? Well, I'm on a lot of cough medication and it's making me kind of loopy. And a result of that has been that getting this pinned together the right way has been the most complex geometry problem I have ever solved. I'm a little embarrassed and I almost pinned the back to the front the wrong way around. So, it's fun. If you are wondering about the instructions that Butterick gives you for navigating the ruffle, where it, you know, where it joins with the skirt, or anything involving any specialty thing around the ruffle, there are none. You just get to navigate that all by your lonesome. Yeah, my strategy was to just kind of pin this out of the way around where it seemed natural for the ruffle to come loose from the waist. Pinned it there and just picked a god and prayed. It looks okay. I also now understand why they call these wiggle dresses, because these close-fitting 1950s dresses often close with a zipper or a button placket at the side, and boy, getting into this thing was a trial. I would normally line something like this by turning it inside out and then putting it on my dress form. However, no part of this dress is large enough to go over the shoulders of my dress form. So we have a zipper. I also noticed that we have a zipper. It's a little bit uneven, but like the unevenness, like the little wrinkle is in the like armpit region, so I'm not really that concerned about it. It'll just get hidden by the general lumpiness of the armpit region. I noticed that there's a ruffle in here. Instead of having to go through all the trouble of putting a pocket in this seam and potentially having your dress have any gappage, you could just install a pocket in this region to be hidden underneath the ruffle. And no one would be any the wiser until you put your hand in your pocket. And I just like to overcomplicate things, because I'm an overcomplicated bitch. So now, I'm gonna do up the rest of this seam, and then it's ready for all the hand finishing work. Baller. It has been more than 2 weeks since I went to go look at that house, and it is still up on Zillow. I am beginning to think that perhaps we were lied to, and I'm still interested in the house. I never got to see the inside, but I did peer in from the windows, and it didn't look like it was in that bad of condition. Obviously, there were no pictures of the inside, but there was of the outside, and it looked like the roof was still in okay shape, and the basement seemed to be in really good shape. So I'm still interested in the house, and it looks like our lovely Nilly may be promoted in the near future here, which would mean we would have a significant increase in our budget, which means we would probably be able to afford a loan that includes like $40,000 worth of renovation in it. And I mean, it's been a dream of mine for a really long time to live in an old historical home and maybe fix it up. I want to be the couple in the horror movie. So, if you can't tell, the housing market in America is an absolute wreck. And it is not helped by the fact that for any proper answers on anything, you have to find a real estate agent and push them down in a dark alley to get what you actually need to buy a house. I am recovered from my cold, and my entire situation at work has exploded. So this dress kind of got lost in the fray. The other two are complete. Mostly completed by hand while I was miserably snuffling, while also having to work because it was I come into work or we can't open the store.
I chose this pair because, to be honest, I knew I would get a lot more use out of this fabric than I would something out of the Rainbow Cards fabric. I'm not really a close-fitting dress person, and I'm not really in all the shades of the rainbow person, if you've ever noticed, by how most of my wardrobe is stark black or shades of gray. And now that I have finished all of these dresses, I'm glad that I went for the fabric that I would use more often. 'Cause turns out I don't like wiggle dresses, because that rainbow dress is real hard to walk in.
In less important news, the pattern does come with a skirt, obviously, but the amount of fabric that I had left would not allow me to use the skirt pattern that was included, so I am just going to make your standard gathered skirt. It's pretty close to being like a standard gathered skirt, but it's got a little bit of tapering toward the top. But it is a one-way pattern, so there's no way for me to futz around and end up with the skirt being in any way symmetrical, left to right. So I have 3 panels that are, I think, 36 inches long. Yeah, 36 inches long, because they're as long as this. And I have my pocket pieces, so. I also have my regular pieces. I also have my bodice pieces. This gets 2 tucks in the front and is just flat at the back. So I am going to go see how much I can get done before I go to work today. Alright, so step 1 with this was to do my tucks, which are put in here. They're just little shapey doodads. And then it looks like the instructions, which are wildly overexposed. The instructions after that want me to do up my front seam, and then if I want to do something with seam binding, which I am not going to do, but after that they want me to do up the armhole little bits on this side, which is the back side of the pattern. It's kind of difficult to tell what's what if you don't check the markings, like I'm not checking the markings. But I just did all the armhole bits at the same time because there's no point in doing it in 2 separate steps. So my next bits are going to be this, and then these seams. Following which, I think I have to baste a little bit on the facing, and then sew the facings down. If you haven't actually looked at this pattern, it is one of this little bit with this weird corner is actually a ribbon channel, so a 1-inch or 1.5-inch ribbon gets threaded through the top of the bodice, and that makes up your, like, it cinches the top around the bust and the top around the back and becomes the straps. So that will be my next bit here. I only have an hour and a half, and yet I still took time to... Somebody reminded me of Homestuck, so I still took time to watch some lyric stucks. Highly recommend. There's some good lyric stucks out there for Hive Swap. I'm gonna go and get that done.
This video is Hive Swap propaganda. Hive Swapaganda. I'm keeping it a surprise until the end of the video, but definitely be kind of aware of where you're cutting things out when you're using a pattern like this, as you may end up with some unfortunate points in the pattern at places you really weren't expecting them to be, and sometimes they match.
We have a bodice with no zipper that needs a bit of pressing. It says to use the extra seam allowance on this part in order to, like, have a place for the ribbon to poke out, but I can't. There's not really any extra seam allowance here. There's a little bit of extra seam allowance on the side that goes over here, but I know I didn't cut it out wrong, because there's no way for this to be here like this facing is. It needs to go where it is. So I don't quite understand, but I shall see in a bit, I guess, once I get the skirt attached. So this up here, this is a self-facing, so it's folded down onto itself, and the ribbon goes in that hole so that it goes up around the shoulders. This is actually very confusing to do, because, like, it needs straps, but I can't put the straps in yet. And I'm very upset because I want to try it on, because I get excited about stuff real easy. I'd actually hoped to film my outro and whatnot today, but instead you can't tell from the window, but it's kind of dark and overcast outside, and also I didn't get this finished because the work is crazy, and it's just me and 2 other people working more than full-time hours on part-time benefits, slowly losing our minds. This is my bodice. I have 2. This is my bodice. I have 2 of my little basting lines in here, so that just in case one of my threads broke for basting, I could just continue using the other one. And also to make it look a little bit better. Ugh. I don't like that. So I just gotta sew this on, sew up the back, then put in my ribbon and my waist tape, and then we shall be finished. So it turns out that I did not correctly follow the order of instructions. This is why you should actually read the instructions and not just half-ass skim them. But I think I am going to continue to just half-ass skim them for most patterns. I am trying to vlog and my upstairs neighbor is vacuuming. Someone, please. We have achieved a fully constructed dress. Just needs a hem and straps, because this doesn't have built-in straps, you have to add straps. So we got a zipper up here, well, down here on your screen, and then I just turned these bits over, pressed them, sewed them down, and then top stitched the rest of the ribbon channel back shut, and that is apparently how that was meant to be done. I gotta say I made it a lot harder by closing up the ribbon channel first, because then I had to unpick it, and even then it doesn't give you a lot of room to work with. Now, this seems longer than I had expected it to be. I think it's just because it is like such a light summery dress, I somehow expected it to be shorter. But I am going to turn this bottom inward by a 1/2 inch. And then I'm probably gonna put it up by maybe 2 inches. That'll give it a little more of a breezy feel. Wow, that almost makes it look like a human lives here. Oh, that's so sad. My chair is ever so slightly too short for you to see my spooky, scary pillow. We have a hem. Actually, we have a completed dress, which I have not been able to try on at all. Because everything when you're making a dress is kind of dependent on the straps that hold it up. But given that the straps on this don't get actually added until the very final step besides hemming, there's been no way to actually try it on without it being weird and requiring probably 2 other people. I also, at this point, have put away the pattern for this, and I don't feel like digging it out to see what this should actually, be in terms of, length. They do have a guide on the pattern, but I don't feel like getting out the pattern. So I am going to say that it's probably, I think it was probably, my arm span, so we're gonna go with that. Now, I would normally seal this with the power of fire, but I can't find my lighter to melt the ends. So I'm gonna have to use some fray check, and I'd rather let that, dry overnight. So I'm gonna try it on like this first. Oh no, wait. That would mean I'd have to get dressed. The thing isn't even getting dressed, it's that this requires shapewear in order to, actually put on. And if you don't know anything about 1950s fashion, it is not actually people were magically just super shapely back then. They wore a lot of shapewear, and if I attempt to put this on with my boobs where they naturally sit, we're gonna have a bad time when I have my proper bra on. Oh no! I thought that this dress would look better on the mannequin than it did just held up in the air. But instead, oh no, it looks so sad and lumpy. Oh, I'm so disappointed. That looks so lame and lumpy on the mannequin. I'm sure it'll look better on, people. But it's just on my mannequin, and it doesn't really fit the mannequin because it's sized to fit me. Because I have a really long torso, so anything that's on the mannequin, it just looks so lumpy and sad. Oh. Well, that wasn't really an improvement. Also, I definitely did not need to, decrease the size of the ribbon. I was like, an 1.5 inch wide ribbon. Oh. Focus camera. An 1.5 inch wide ribbon really was the correct size. Well, that's... Why do you think that speaker is so interesting? Anyway, that's that.
I don't have very much footage of these completed. I figured they would look better in more of an environment where there's clearly signs of people, rather than out in the woods. But this meant that I was filming this on the only day I had available, which was a Friday, so people were out and able to observe me doing these shots, and it meant that I got really nervous. It was also just kind of tough because a lot of the footage that was even done was of me squinting with my hair in my face because the wind is way too strong. Anyway, like this video if you liked this video. Subscribe if you would like to see my post-Halloween shit show, because I refused to seed November, and also nothing was done because I'm trying to renovate a house. Links are in the description to the social medias and the Discord, and also to the patterns that I used for this, as well as the fabrics.